Momo!
Momo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're about to get a
Momo
Momo
put up
fix.
the Momo signal,
Yeah,
not
we
the bad
did.
signal.
Right.
We had to put up the Momo signal.
Need to talk to somebody who's in the damn room, okay? The Quest for Five, brought to you by the Alameda PD, now offering a $75,000 hiring incentive. Our team is your future. Go to alamedapolice.org to apply today. Yes, that's the great Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, our good friend, and someone who was in the building. So, Ramona, hello. Thank you for coming on. How would you describe what you saw in the Warrior locker room after the game last night?
So there was two parts of this, right? There's the immediate aftermath when I was standing outside talking to some folks. I think a lot of the reporters kind of went straight over to Jordan Poole's locker right away, and I've heard others describe it as like very tense. He like wouldn't turn and look at anybody, and he was like short one-word answers. But by the time I got in there, he was still sitting there, and like no one was talking to him, and he was fine, and he wasn't like rushing off. He was sitting in his locker for quite a while. I saw another, I think Kendra Andrews from ESPN. She went over and talked to him, kind of like he was fine talking to her. I think he was just kind of right after the game when the locker room first opened up. Obviously, he had a pretty terrible performance yesterday, and was not in a great place to be answering questions. Mentally, wasn't great. But he didn't storm out of there. I've certainly seen guys act way worse. A lot of times like they storm out of the locker room or something, or they're nobody wants to talk to him. Like he hung out in there for a good like 5-10 minutes afterwards, and then I stayed and waited for Klay Thompson because I wanted to talk to Klay. I felt like he took some poor shots at the end of that game that I know he'd want to have back. But I also thought he's been around for so much of this that I was interested in his perspective, having gone through these kind of series before, and he was worth waiting for, right? Like he took his time getting dressed. I know he told me he went and watched a bunch of the film, of the fourth quarter and some of those plays at the end. He watched those again. He and Draymond had a little. They were kind of talking to each other while we were in there, and I think they were just kind of venting about some of the phantom. Moving screen calls that were called yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty upset about that. But I've seen bad locker rooms. That didn't feel like a bad locker room to me. Like that felt like, yeah, they were pissed that they lost the game. Like they were disappointed. I think they were more mad at themselves. A bad locker room is when they don't think they can win, or they don't think they should have won. Like they feel overwhelmed, and that was not a bad locker room. That was like pretty much every Warrior road loss locker room in the year, where they kind of, they get sloppy. They make some weird plays at the end. They're mad at themselves. I think they have a respect for the Lakers and what they're doing. But like everyone I talked to last night in that locker room sort of felt like they gave that one away.
Ramona, what's the ethos or the rules of the locker room when it's open like that? Is it pretty much open season? If a player's there, then they're fair game for a Q&A, or is there a certain amount of, like, if a guy has his back to you that not to ask him questions? Give our listeners an idea of what that's like when you go into the locker room and it's just kind of open for questioning.
So I usually roll like, okay, I'm definitely going to wait till you get dressed. I don't go to people until they, they're ready, unless they want to do an interview while they're in their, like they're fully clothed, right? Like, they're still in their uniform. A lot of times Anthony Davis will do an interview at his locker where he's got his feet in a bucket of ice. Like he does that a lot, right? So, but I wait till if it looks like they want to shower and change, you like wait till they get fully dressed. And then you just say like, hey, are you ready for us? Right? So my guess is when I saw Jordan, he was fully dressed. He was fully ready to go. Like he wasn't doing anything. Like he wasn't still like buttoning his shirt or anything. So he was sitting at his locker and he was facing his locker. So I don't know who was the reporter who said, "Are you ready to talk?" Usually you kind of ask them before you stick a camera in their face. It's a requirement to talk post game. You're supposed to talk every game after the game. If you don't do it, you get fined. But it was. I felt like with Jordan, without having been there for the entree of it, at the beginning of it. I can't say how that started, but he was ready to go. He was dressed. It wasn't like, I don't think he was. All he needed to do was turn around, and I think that's where things got weird because he didn't turn around.
Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, with us. There's so much to discuss when it comes to him. The story of the whole year, which I know you know well, and so when I hear him last night say that he's not worried about his shot, he's not worried about his work ethic, but he is worried about opportunities. Like, knowing what we know from where this has been, Ramona, I question whether or not he wants to still be on the Warriors. What do you think about that?
I think that's fair. I mean, I think, that was a pretty all-time bad body language moment, right? Some of the shots of him coming out of the game were pretty bad, right? He did just sign a giant contract, so I think he wants to stay on the team to play for that, at least. You don't see the other guys in that locker room, at least publicly, selling him out at all. Like, I thought Steph had his back pretty well in his post-game comments, or that Steve Kerr had his back. I think a lot is being made about Jordan because he had such a poor game, and then also the way he behaved afterwards was not great. But, look, I just got done covering the Memphis Grizzlies, where, like, half that team didn't talk to the media after they lost.
Right.
Right? I mean, it was like, that's pretty standard. We're just not used to it on the Warriors because those guys, they have a great PR staff with the Warriors. They know what's expected of them. They usually compose themselves well enough to address whatever's going on head on right afterwards. And, I'll always, there's always a recognition amongst the reporters that, like, sometimes after a bad loss, like, guys need a minute to cool off, So I don't, knowing the Bay Area media crowd like I do, I don't think anybody pushed Jordan to talk. I don't think they were, like, pushing him or being, he wasn't ready. I think he just didn't want to do it, or he was just going to do it in his way, that way. But to me, this is where you have to dig down and be a professional. Like, we all get ourselves in situations where, like, the sun is shining on you, people like you at work, you're put in a good role and you feel like you're set up to succeed. And then there's other times where, like, your bosses are not as good, you're not a good role, you don't like it as much, and you still have to be the same professional, And so I think that's where he is right now of like, you get a lot of run in the playoffs. They don't have a very long window here. I mean, I thought his minutes in the third quarter that was a real turning point of the game. They were up 10 or 12 in the third quarter. And then he went in there and had a really bad stretch, and that's when the Lakers caught him. You can't just let somebody play through it if it's hurting the team like that. And so this is where he's got to respond. Like, he's got to show that. I mean, everybody has bad games. Everybody has bad series. And so, the guys that have lasted on this Warriors team, they respond. How many times you had a bad Klay Thompson game and the next one he's great? Bad Draymond game, next game is great. This is what makes you part of the championship Warriors. So now it's his turn.
Yeah, 0 for 4 in just 10 minutes. I wonder how much time he actually gets in Game 5. But I want to ask you about Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and that discussion. And, Klay looking at the film of a couple of really curious, if not bad, shot attempts in that fourth quarter. Did he speak at all to maybe the reality of him maybe making other choices?
He did. Klay always owns it. Like, that's what, like, honestly, ever since I've covered him, like, he's never ducked anything. Like, he was just like, yeah, I probably shot that one too early. Wish I could have that one back. Probably rushed that, I mean, he really, he just flat out said it. I mean, I don't know if you've heard the audio of that, if that made its way around as much, because there really wasn't many people in there when Klay and Draymond were there. Here's the part that was really weird. Steph, Klay, and Draymond all kind of got ready at about the same time. So Steph went into the podium. He went to go talk at the podium. Klay was going to talk at his locker, and Draymond was going to speak at the podium. So you had to make a choice. Were you going to stay there with Klay, or are you going to go to the podium with Steph? It was at the same time. So I stayed with Klay, and I was thinking Draymond would speak at the podium afterwards, but then they got some kind of threat at Staples Center, or Crypto.com, Reno now, And right as Steph was finishing up at the podium, they had to like evacuate the arena. So Draymond never got to talk. Like he was going to, he wasn't going to duck it or anything. It was just we all had to leave the arena really fast. And it was, when I started seeing the bomb sniffing dogs, I'm like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, no game's that important. Yeah, Did we ever find out what that was? By the way, did you find out what it was?
No, it was probably. I didn't. It was late, and I had to get home, and I was like, okay, nothing happened. Obviously, they got it. And so they took care of whatever it was. It was probably something got called. My guess is, something got called in, and they had to take it seriously. Sometimes they get. I've been covering games there for 15 years. I've never seen that though, so I wasn't about to stick around too long and find out.
Yeah, exactly. Let somebody else report on that.
Yeah, well played.
I was like, I got 2 kids at home. It's 11 o'clock at night. I got a big story to write. Let's get the hell out of here.
Smart, yeah. Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, with us here. Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. I think we're all sort of fascinated by / wanting to get to the bottom of what has the Warriors in this position. And I mean that season long, but also in this series. Like, Ramona, what's being talked about in that locker room that needs to change in these next 3 games, if there are 3 games?
They're not sharp at all. They're loose. They're careless with the ball. They're making some poor decisions. And, it's the same thing that we talked about on the road all season long. Like, they're just giving games away, it feels like. And I feel in watching them, like, you were watching that game last night, and it just felt like they gave it away with really just dumb decisions. Like, what the hell was the Stephs play at the end? Like, why didn't he call timeout? Steve Kerr was trying to call timeout. Like, was he trying to pass that to Moody, who was standing behind him? I don't know what happened there. The play that Draymond ran, where they're giving him the layup, and Anthony Davis and LeBron have, they've watched film. They know what play's coming. Anthony Davis just jumped the passing lane and got in there. I mean, it was just what's going on here? I could see Anthony Davis in the passing lane. Draymond, I'm sure, could see. He's too good of a player to not see him. It was a weird, some of those 3-pointers. Clay had 2 of them. Steph had 1 or 2 of them. I also thought Steph's. We talk about that a lot in LA, and maybe there's something to it. I'm starting to think there's something to it that he just doesn't shoot that well there. He makes a lot of shots, but his short game was off. His, the pitch and putts that he does, all the little floaters, and those were off too. It wasn't just a poor 3-point shooting. He ended up having a great game. He finished with a great line. He had a bunch of assists. He rallied, but it wasn't the same. He played as well as he did in the Sacramento game where he scored 50. That's how good Steph played. But he just didn't make as many shots. It just didn't go in. So is that Staples Center? Is it something with the lighting there? Is it, it doesn't like the rim? I don't know. Something weird happened in pregame. Maybe you guys are into omens. I was watching Steph and Clay warm up, and I've never seen this before either. They were shooting, and the balls hit each other while they were in the air.
Whoa!
Oh, no!
No!
Wait a minute!
Wait, you buried the lead, Momo.
The Splash Brothers ran their surfboards into one another.
Totally.
What?
It was weird. And it wasn't. Steph didn't shoot it. He he kind of puts wrinkles in there. He did this volleyball. He was at Manhattan Beach, and he was hitting the ball over to Bruce Fraser with his hand, and he was passing it to him, and Clay was just shooting, and it hit Clay's ball in midair.
Oh God!
And Steph was like, "Whoa, what was that?" And I was watching. I go, "The hell was that?" And I wrote it down, and I go, "Man, that was kind of weird. I've never seen that before." But I don't know. These guys have probably. I asked Clay about it after the game, and I go, "Does that ever happen?" He goes, "I don't know. Probably play together a lot."
Right.
He didn't think of it as a weird omen. I did, but I'm not there every day in practice. That happens when you're shooting on the same basket. But I've watched them warm up together, and I haven't seen it. It's weird.
You've covered so much basketball and you've covered teams down 3-1 before. Do you get a sense that they've got a quiet confidence that they can at least extend this thing back to LA for one more road visit?
Yeah. That was not a down locker room. It was a pissed locker room.
Yeah.
Like angry, Like they were just kind of mad at themselves and mad at the refs a little bit. I mean, Steve Kerr even said it. He goes, I thought we had some questionable calls. I did too, frankly, watching. I was like, that was not a moving screen. That was a no call.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ramona.
Austin Reeves got away with a few things.
Yep.
He's got that move Steph used to do. The one where he backs up into somebody. He's got that down, and he's getting the whistle on those. I think they feel like a confident team going into Game 5, and I have covered teams that are down 3-1 before. I thought the Lakers seemed very tired. They put a lot of energy into that one. Wouldn't shock me at all if they kind of give it a go for the first quarter.
Right.
And if it's not going their way, they kind of conserve some energy. They did that in the Memphis series.
But can they stop Lonnie Walker the fourth, Ramona? I mean, Lonnie Walker, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
not worried about that one.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
I hate him.
The game of his life. It was he's a really nice guy. I'm happy for him. I thought that was great. He's like, sometimes when there's role players that have a big game like that, you're like, you know what, I'm genuinely happy for that dude. He's a really good guy. He works hard. He's like, he stayed ready. Like, he wasn't complaining. He wasn't, talking in the locker room. He was a good dude. So happy for him that happened. I could see it happen again, but I don't think the Warriors are like game planning to stop him. I think they're going to take their chances of him being able to do that again.
Yeah, let's not waste our time there in the film room. I would imagine is that one. So, all right, Ramona. I mean, it sounds like you think there's still real, like maybe even better than a puncher's chance here.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm fully expecting to be back in LA on Friday.
Yep.
Now, am I expecting to be up in the Bay on Sunday? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. That's just fair. Yeah. Great to hear you, man, Ramona. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, welcome.
All right, there it is. Ramona Shelburne, ESPN.